everyone, it's Cass. Welcome back to my channel, What Cass Read. Today, it's Tuesday, and I'm here with another tag video. So I'm here to do the New Year's resolutions book tag, and I was actually tagged by Richard Reeds, and he tagged me about a week or so ago, and I know we're kind of nearing the end of January, but people are still talking about resolutions throughout the whole month of January, so I thought, let's go ahead and do this tag. As per usual, the questions are on my phone, so if I'm looking down, that is why. So the first question is, how many books are you planning to read in 2018? So I said in my 2018 reading goals, I can go ahead and put the card or link or something up there, and I said that I want to read 36 books. It might not seem like a gigantic number, and I think I can definitely surpass 36 books, but I feel like averaging 3 books per month with my busy training, workout, jiu-jitsu schedule with a full-time job, and I do tend to read a lot of larger books. A lot of the books on my TBR this year are above 500 pages, so I feel like if I just keep myself committed to a goal of 3 books per month, then I'm not gonna feel like super overwhelmed to try and get to 100 books if I can't even do that with all the big books I want to read. Okay, question number 2 is, name 5 books that you didn't get to this year but want to make a priority in 2018. I did do a whole Top 5 Wednesday video about the books that I didn't get to in 2017, and while I do want to get to some of those, in the interest of not repeating myself with the same 5 books over and over and over again, I've come up with 5 additional books that I feel like I would like to prioritize in 2018. And it's probably no surprise to anyone that I didn't actually stick to 5 books. I think there's 7 books total. So the first one that I want to mention, this is The Star Touched Queen by Roshani Chokshi. I mentioned this as well in my 2018 goals because I did say that I wanted to diversify a lot of the fantasy books that I read. This is a story about a young woman. I've been told it's more of a Hades and Persephone retelling with Indian folklore mixed in. It starts off along the vein of a young woman is forced to marry someone as a part of merging 2 kingdoms together, and I believe it goes off from there. It's like that's a very, very shallow base level explanation of this book, but I did say that I wanted to prioritize this in 2018. The next book that I'm super excited for is Nevernight by Kristoff. I became a fan of Kristoff when I read the Illuminae books, when I read Illuminae, and I said that I wanted to check out more of the stuff that he wrote by himself. So there's a couple other series that I have just been turned on to, but the book that I have in front of me again is Nevernight. This is book 1 of the Nevernight Chronicles, and so far there's only 2 books out. This story is about a young girl who becomes an assassin. So that's all I really needed to know. I really like assassin books. The artwork on this cover is super sick, and a ton of people have had really positive things to say about this book, so I'm very excited about prioritizing this in 2018. This next book should hardly need any introduction. This is A Darker Shade of Magic, written by V.E. Schwab. This book is more on the polarizing spectrum of books that either people really love it or they really didn't care for it, and I want to read this year because I just want to see kind of which side of the coin do I fall on. This is a story that's set in 4 different Londons that are all very similar to one another, but the worlds have different powers. Some have powers, some don't. Some have magic, some don't. I believe the story kicks off when someone brings something into an alternate universe London that they're not supposed to. Tons of people have read this one. I haven't, so I'm looking forward to reading this and again seeing which side of the coin do I fall on. This book that I want to mention, this is Truthwitch, written by Susan Dennard. Susan Dennard has been blowing up my Twitter feed lately because Sightwitch is coming out. That's her 3rd book. It's a part of the whole Witchlands series. I believe it's a prequel novel, but don't quote me on that one. Anyways, this is a young adult novel, and I really want to get into this in 2018 because I've heard really good things about the female friendships in here, and the powers are really interesting. Truth witches are able to tell if people are lying to them, and there's wind witches, which is book number 2. There's just all sorts of different powers in here. This looks like a really easy kind of series to be able to get into, and again, I've heard really, really great things about this one. I haven't mentioned it too much, but I want to get into this in 2018 as well. This book right here, this is Furthermore by Tahareh Mafi. So this is a middle grade novel, and it takes place in a world that is full of color, as you can see from the cover on this book. And our main character, her name is Alice, she is completely devoid of color except for her eyes. Now, her father has disappeared a couple of years ago. There's a male in her life that's like a kid that she doesn't really get along with, but he knows some secrets about where her father might be, and so they set off an adventure to find her father. I did buy Witchwood as a part of my whole December haul. I want to get to that one really soon, and I've been told that some of the characters from Furthermore do show up in Witchwood, and so I want to be caught up. So this is Furthermore, written by Tahareh Mafi. And then the final book that I don't really mention a lot, and I want to get to this series. Now, I don't know how soon I'll be able to get into it because, as you know from my channel, maybe you don't, but I love adult fantasy. Those picks that I just mentioned there weren't all adult fantasy. There's some young adult and some middle grade, but my priority is always adult fantasy. And as I'm working my way through a ton of these adult fantasy series, this one has got put on the back burner, but I've heard extremely great things about Peter V. Brett. This is The Warded Man. This is book number 1 in the Demon Cycle series. There are 2 different names for the first book. The Painted Man, I believe, is the UK edition, and then The Warded Man is the US edition. This is a world where demons exist and demons come out at night, and I just want to get to it. So this one I will also find myself prioritizing probably in the later half of the year because I've got a lot of big fantasy books that I want to get to before this one. So those are some books that I hardly ever bring up, and I thought just in the interest of not always mentioning the same 5 books over and over again, you get to see some of the other picks that I have. So question number 3 is, what genre do you want to read more of? Well, it's always going to be adult fantasy. I have branched out into some other things, adult contemporary, young adult contemporary, historical fiction. I do like historical fiction, but my reading identity is solely centered around adult fantasy, and that's where I love to read books. That's where I love to spend my time reading. So it's always going to be more adult fantasy. But this year I did have a goal of wanting to get back into some more classics. After I graduated from college with my degree, I stopped reading a lot of classics because I was like, I don't want to think about books I don't want to think about these kinds of books for a while. But it's been a long time since I picked up a classic, and so I set in my 2018 goals that I did want to read 5 classics this year. So hopefully I will be able to get to some classics soon. Okay, question number 4 is, name 3 non-book related goals for 2018. Like I said in my goal setting video, I keep bringing that up, so if you haven't watched that one, just go ahead and watch that one, because apparently I have a lot of things to say about goal setting. I mentioned that with my students, I always harp on them about creating SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. There's nothing that irks me more than vague goal setting, because that's not really a thing. Goal setting really drives me up the wall. So did I set any personal goals for 2018 that are not book related? Probably by springtime, as I would like to declutter and participate in a really big spring cleaning thing for my apartment. I'm gonna tackle one room at a time and just get rid of a bunch of stuff that I haven't even used since I've moved into this apartment 3 years ago. Number 2 is I want to meal prep, so I stop spending money on lunch throughout the week. What usually happens is I get into this spiral of, I work out 3 days a week, we go out to eat after jiu-jitsu with all of our jiu-jitsu friends, and then I go home and I don't cook. And then the nights that I'm not working out, then I don't feel like cooking because I'm tired and sore from working out. And so then the next day at lunch, then I don't have anything to bring for lunch because I didn't cook and I ate out and all that stuff. So I'm trying to stop that cycle from continuing. So meal prepping is something that I want to do. I'm gonna say that I want to meal prep at least 2 weeks a month. Again, I want to be realistic with myself. And then my 3rd non-book related goal for 2018, I want to earn at least 1 stripe on my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. I earned my blue belt back in October, and I've been nursing a couple of injuries since then throughout December and January. So once I'm able to get back into the gym and rolling at a more consistent basis, I do want to see some growth in my technique. And so at least 1 stripe for the whole year, I think, would be very attainable. 2 stripes might be pushing it, but I think 1 stripe would be really attainable. Okay, question number 5 is, what's a book you've had forever that you still need to read? Well, I've got 2 to mention here. The 2 books that I have are World Without End, and then This is Fall of Giants. World Without End is kind of marketed as the sequel to The Pillars of the Earth, which is one of my favorite books of all time. This takes place 2 centuries after the events in The Pillars of the Earth, and I believe it follows kind of the events around the Black Plague. And then this one, Fall of Giants, is book number 1 in the Century trilogy, so it follows several different families, I think at least 5 different families, throughout the turn of the century in 1899 to 1900, and then throughout the whole century. I'm not getting rid of them because Ken Follett is one of my favorite authors, and once I get around to them, I know I'm going to enjoy them. Okay, question number 6 is, one word that you hope 2018 will be, and for me, that word is simplified. I just want to simplify my life, such as getting rid of the things that I'm not using. I feel like the meal prepping will help me just kind of simplify my morning routine, because I don't wake up in time a lot of the time in the morning, so just to be able to have food ready to go and I can pack it up and ready to go, I think that'll simplify my life that way. It'll also simplify my life throughout the week when I'm not training and I'm not feeling up to doing anything. Thank you so much, Richard, for tagging me. I'm gonna pull a leaf out of his book and list a few people in my description box, and then I'll also tag you on Twitter if I've tagged you. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at WhatCassRead, the same as this channel, so I'm super easy to find. And of course, you can also find me on Goodreads if you want to know what I'm up to in my reading life. And of course, you know how these videos end. I'll talk to you later. Bye.